we are going to be talking about occupations and electrical and electronic engineering profession. And in the past, we have said that electrical engineering deals with the application of laws of electrical energy and the principles of engineering, such as generation, transmission, and use of electricity. And this also includes the design and development. I think I should actually highlight that. It also includes the design and development of machinery and equipment for production and utilization of electrical power. And typical specializations that we can find under the engineering professions include generation, transmission, and distribution, electrical and electronic components, equipment and system manufacturing, radio and television broadcasting, telephone and telegraph, electronic computer engineering, and bioengineering. This is the common term that we normally have. So, engineering, we can find all these sub branches, and we have gone through them in the past under the electrical engineering. So you can become any of these. You can become an expert of television and broadcasting, telephone, computer engineering, generation and transmission of power, development of electrical and electronic components, systems, manufacturing, etc. So that is in brief what engineering might involve. And now when you talk about occupations, we're talking about different roles that you can find yourself being hired to fill under the engineering career. So the first thing, you might be called a general electrical engineer. And a general electrical engineer will just do the basic things that we have said engineers do. That includes research, development, designing and testing of electrical components, equipments, and systems by applying the principles that we have said. That is the principles of electrical engineering. So you can be a general purpose engineer who can do all this. Number two, so this is our number one. You can be a general purpose engineer doing all those things. You can also be called design engineer that deals with facilities, and therefore just notice that is a unique role that you might find yourself in your profession. And this engineer is concerned with the design of electrical equipment, facilities, components, and products, and systems for commercial, industrial, and domestic purposes. So what you might find here is that some of these roles will overlap. Sometimes you can be called a facilities design engineer or a design product engineer. You might find that some of the roles overlap, but the most important thing to notice is that they are just some guidance to what you can do or you can practice as a lead. So yeah, you should not get worried about whether they are overlapping or not. So that we have talked about electrical engineer general. Then design engineer is doing more of design. The keyword here is the design. You're talking about facilities, so we are talking about design engineer facilities. So you can find, so what is differentiating this person is that they are dealing with facilities, and facilities might involve components, products, and systems. So more or less, this should actually fall under the bracket such that the facilities might involve all those. So having said that, then we can talk about design engineer product. So talk about design engineer. This engineer designs and directs engineering personnel in fabrication of test control apparatus and equipment, and determines methods, procedures, and conditions for testing products. So I know, as I have mentioned before, these roles might be overlapping, but the key word to notice here is that this engineer is concerned with the design, and now he is working with a team of engineering personnel who are fabricating as some components or some product. And when we talk about product, we might talk about a mobile phone, we might talk about some calculators or some tablets, anything that is electronic. And therefore, what the engineer will do, there is a whole process that is involved in the engineering that must be followed for a product to be delivered. And therefore, what we are simply saying is that the engineer will direct the engineering personnel in fabrication of test control apparatus, the equipment, the methods, and procedures and conditions for testing the product until the product is ready for the market. So that is the work of products design engineer. So we can call him product design engineer or design engineer design engineer, product. So whichever approach you prefer, it is okay. Then the number 4 is test engineer. So we have talked about the design engineer products. Now we talk about the test engineer. And then test engineer does a number of activities, particularly with regard to testing of the products that have been developed. They normally go through what we call the QA. I think I mentioned that in our last class. So we are saying that this test engineer directs activities to ensure that manufacturing, construction, installation, operational testing conform to the functional specifications and customer requirements. So that is the first thing that they talk or this engineer plays. So we are saying that we are directing activities that ensure that all these functions that are followed when you are developing a product are meeting the functional specifications and customer requirements. So that those are like standards that the company or the manufacturer has developed that makes their products unique. And what you can observe, and this is something I think I was thinking about the other day, is that there are companies that when they test their product, and I think I would give you an example of one company that is very meticulous about their product. April is a company that produces iPhones, iPads, and MacBook. And I can tell you that this company is very meticulous, very detailed in regard to how they perform the testing of their product. Such that if you are buying this product, either of these, and are brand new, you don't even need to test it. Your retailer will not test it. They cannot even open the box until you have bought it. So it is like they are giving you a very high level of guarantee that this product has gone through thorough testing and retesting and verification that everything is in place. So most of the times, because I have actually bought some of these products, it is not like the one that you go and you test and you find that oh, the mouthpiece is not working or the speaker is not working. You do not find that kind of thing with this company's product. And therefore, as much as their products are relatively expensive, I can tell you that the kind of products that they deliver are very high quality. And what I'm simply saying in that regard is that there is the work of test engineer that confirms that all the functional specifications and customer requirements have been met in all of these steps. That is during the manufacturing, the installation, and operational testing. And that is one of the work that are performed. So that is what a test engineer's role is, that they make sure that all the functional requirements and specifications for the customer have been met. The last thing I wanted to mention about this engineer is that they design test control apparatus, the equipment. They determine procedures for testing the product. They direct the engineering personnel in fabrication of the test control, among others. So more or less, that is what test engineers do. You can be hired, like, don't find it strange, like the big companies, you can find their advertising for a role of a test engineer or design engineer product or the others. But again, they may not even advertise that. Sometimes they will just advertise that you join them as a general electronics engineer. You can find a company advertising for a research position in the engineering career, and therefore you might apply. And most of the times when they advertise for that, they require the prospective employee to have done some advanced degree, most of the times a postgraduate, which might be master's or PhD. These are the people who normally carry out research. At your level, at the graduate level, most of the times you are not very well groomed to carry out research. So we normally train you to understand the basic phenomenon of electrical engineering and the different roles that, or the basic principles of what engineering laws or electrical engineering laws are carried out. But then when you proceed to do some postgraduate degree, then you can now be considered for a research position. The other one, which is a bit more detailed, is electronics engineer, which is quite elaborate. Electronics engineer deals with the electronic components, products, and systems. Again, I wanted to highlight just these three. So this person researches, develops, and designs and tests. So they are like similar to the electrical engineer that we talked about, but now this person is now involved more with electronics, so products. So you and I have seen most of these products, and now what we are simply saying is that there is an expert electronics engineer that who can be tasked to do that. So you're saying that these products and systems for either commercial, industrial, medical, military, or scientific applications, and they normally apply the principles and techniques of electronic engineering. So this is something that we have already come across, and it is very similar to that of electrical engineer, but again, this kind of engineer is now more specific to dealing with electronic components, products, and systems. Yeah, and of course, they are applying the principles and techniques of electronic engineering. Then, in addition, they design electronic circuits. So we have said this is the general role that they do, but then they design electronic circuits, components, and integrated systems utilizing the electronic components that you are going to be meeting at your later stage of your career. You are going to be meeting these concepts, so don't get scared by them. But we are simply saying that electronic engineers will be conversant with the ferroelectric, non-linear dielectrics, linear and non-linear dielectric, phosphorescent, photoconductive, and thermoelectric properties of materials. The electronics engineer develops new applications of conductive properties of metallic and metallic materials used in components, and the application of components to products and systems may direct field operations and maintenance of electronic installations. The engineer may also evaluate operational systems, recommend design modifications to eliminate causes of malfunctions or changes in system requirements. These are more or less details. As a matter of fact, I would rather not really take you through all this, because the whole idea is just to know that these electronic engineers are purely dealing with the electronic components. So we have just resolved the electronics engineer to only this part that describes the general role of an electronics engineer, and we have avoided going to the details of what knowledge that electronic engineers requires. Let's just leave it at that. So electronics design engineer. So there is now a difference between electronics engineer and electronics design engineer, and again, not much difference, but we can simply say that this electronic design engineer develops electronic designs and develops electronics components, equipment, systems, and products, and applying the knowledge and principles of electronic theory, design, and engineering. So again, very similar to that of electronics engineer, except that this person is more or less concerned with the design and development. So that is very important, that in this case, they are more or less concerned with design and development, where the electronics engineer is actually doing all the other burden, which includes testing. I think I should also highlight that as well. So that is the difference between these two, and it is good that we know that the electronics engineer falls under the general category of electrical engineer, but then at the electrical engineer we also have design engineer. So it's similarly in electronic engineer we have electronic engineer who is a general engineer under the applying all these concepts about electronic components, products, and systems. But then there is the design engineer who will actually just do the design and development. They're not going to be doing the testing, etc. They're just coming up with a new product. Yeah, and we are saying that they perform duties as described by, so I think they may use computer-assisted engineering and design software and equipment to formulate and test electronic designs. So this is where we said that when you are developing a new product, you most of the time do some modeling and simulations, and therefore when you are doing those ones, you're not really testing it on a live product. You are doing on a software that allows you to do the formulation and testing. So before you actually make the product. So the testing you're talking about here is not the testing of a product before it goes to the market. We are talking about testing just to find out how the product will be like when it is developed. And I think that is very important for all of us. So then I know this might be new to you. You may not have heard about illumination engineer, but it's also very common. So we're saying that the illumination engineer designs and directs installation of illuminating equipment and systems for building. And therefore, what comes to mind here is that when buildings and plants and stadia, think about it. Think about illuminating a stadium like our national stadium, there is a lot of lighting, and to determine how much light is required, etc. Think about buildings like KICC. KICC requires a very serious lighting in terms of the design, in terms of knowing how much light is being produced by the kind of bulbs that are going to be installed, etc. Talk about outdoor displays, and I know you have seen them, multi-screen. And if you go to Nairobi, and you'll see very huge screens, about how many meters, 10 meters by 10 meters, or even bigger than that. And therefore, those kind of illumination systems, they actually require to be done or developed by a specialist engineer, which we are calling illumination engineer. So talk about street lighting. Again, street lighting cannot be done just by chance or by try and error. This requires proper lighting. And again, you might have also seen some tunnel. And tunnels also might be dark, particularly there are tunnels that run underground or underwater or at the sea. Those kind of tunnels require to be well lit, and therefore that kind of engineers normally is called specialist engineer, and they work under the category or under the name of illumination engineer. So we're saying that they studies the lighting requirements of a client to determine the lighting equipment and arrangement of lamps that will provide optimum illumination with economy of installation and operation. And I think that's a very serious statement that we have just mentioned right there. So we are talking about the requirements. They are going to be studying the requirements. They are not going to be filling every other space with a bulb, but they are going to find optimal locations where lamps can be placed, and the optimal size of the lamp, or the optimal capacity of the lamp, or what we are calling bulb. That is a very serious role that illumination engineers play. Therefore, why we are doing this is because sometimes you might see things in the world, and you think they are just done haphazardly by people who have been given the work. But it requires specialists for like we have seen, to develop those systems. So we are also saying that the illumination engineer design lamps of required light intensity and output, talk about light control reflectors and lenses, light lamp arrangement required to meet illuminating standards. They also plan and prepare drawings for installation of lighting system in accordance with grants, specifications, and municipal code. They also direct installation of system to ensure conformance with engineering specifications and compliance with electrical codes. This generally actually applies to every engineer, that any kind of installation must comply with the code of specifications that have been set out by either the body that regulates the profession, or the municipality, or the city council. So may be designed according to the type of location of illumination designed and installed. So that is as far as illumination engineering is concerned.